Not without its bumps. We all know that we've had a bump with this particular criterion. And just to remind you that the criterion in the 2012 standards said clinical fieldwork education includes no less than 30% or 150 hours of the total time in each discipline for each student. So because of some issues, there were some issues with our CAOT board primarily, I think, with the actual standard. We thought we had to do something about it. So we decided to use TRES for collecting data. This is a program, for those of you who haven't used it, used in some programs, particularly in OT and PT, to have students electronically add data to a program. You can run all sorts of reports. It was originally designed for medical residents, but has become quite useful in a number of different areas. So we thought, well, let's use that to see if we can differentiate between OTA, PTA tasks and activities, and get some data from that will help us to resolve this issue. We had an advisory committee, and thanks to all of you. I'm sure there are some people in the room who sat on that committee. Thank you very much for your time. We had a research assistant working with us who helped to prepare the tables and look at the data. And with the advisory committee, we analyzed the data, drafted a report, reviewed the report, and then came up making some changes with a final report with recommendations. And that report was presented to PEAC board and to the CAOT board fairly recently. So the purpose of the study was to look whether we could differentiate between these tasks during placements, and to identify those tasks that are currently part of a combined experience that could be allocated either to OTA or PTA, and to inform future revisions to the accreditation standards, particularly 3.4.2. So from the data, we realized that OT assigned and PT assigned tasks can be captured and tracked. And I think it was a really useful exercise to actually try and identify what those are, and then try to figure out, okay, who assigned this, who didn't assign this. That it is possible to develop a tracking system for fieldwork placements that can discriminate between OTA and PTA activities during the combined placements. And approximately 34% of student time was spent on tasks assigned by an OT, suggesting that programs are complying currently with the requirements of 3.4.2. So we recommended that we revise 3.4 to add core to the second and third criteria. And you can, I don't need to read it to you there, you can see it there. But so the core means that you must meet those standards in any accreditation process. There's no ambiguity about that. We recommended that there were clear guidelines regarding evidence provided of OTA and PTA hours, and so we had working groups struck to develop those tracking guidelines, and Amanda tells me that group has worked really hard and diligently and has almost finished its work, which is fantastic, so thank you to any of you involved in that. That on the occupational therapy profession front, there needed to be some changes, because if you can't find the placements, then that's a problem. So how do we help to find those placements? So within the OT profession, the support for programs needs to be built. And in the report, there are several examples. And I have to say, from Elizabeth Steggles and now Alison Douglas, thank you. Alison Douglas, between Elizabeth and Alison, there's been a huge improvement, I think, in the focus on the OTA side, particularly. Recommending clear communication and adequate timelines, so that the standards for 2016 will be published by August. 3 years for people to adjust to any changes, and a recommended timeline, which is in your package, so that you can see the timeline there. And support to collect and format the required evidence for submission, and I think that'll come out of the tracking working group, and providing you with materials that will really help to help the PRT members, the peer review team members, and the Joint Accreditation Committee, as well as yourselves, to make sure that we do the best we can with this standard. And so from our two governing bodies, the CAOT board and the PEAC, the recommendations were approved by both. And you have this in your handout, so you can see the report recommendations and the timelines.